I'm noticing a trend where a lot of people can recognize imperialism and imperialist wars after they happen, and they can recognize that they were wrong, that we were lied into them. Like Iraq, it's something like only 17% of Americans support Iraq at this point. People recognize that Saddam didn't have WMDs. So many Americans were sent over there and died who didn't need to die. Totally destabilized the region, created ISIS, and most of what we were told about Saddam was lies, right? And the real reason they took him out was because he wanted to start trading for oil with the Iraq's currency. I can't think of what the name is, and that would challenge the U.S. petrodollar. So they had to get rid of him, and people realize that now, and they realize that using 9/11 was just a tactic. Same with like the 1973 coup in Chile, right, when they overthrew Allende because he was an evil dictator, and then who they put in was Augusto Pinochet, who murdered Marxists and left them in the streets and had 20,000 people murdered in Chile's national soccer stadium, right? Or they can realize in 1953 in Iran when we overthrew Mossadegh, all he was doing was trying to use the Iranian oil on Iran. Korea, when we murdered 20% of their population. Blah, blah, blah. I can go on forever. People realize that these were wrong now. At least, people on the left. People who aren't neoconservatives or people who are into studying politics at all, honestly. They can recognize that these wars were terrible, human catastrophes. But people struggle to realize when they're being lied to into a new war. Right, they can recognize the playbook from the past, but when the media is selling them these things, like we're now learning from the Gray Zone's reporting that Assad's chemical weapons attacks that he did in 2018 were falsified by the UN. Whistleblowers are coming out and their testimonies are being suppressed by the UN. Whistleblowers who were in Syria, who are senior analysts with the UN, are coming out now in Syria, or who were in Syria when the supposed chemical gas attacks happened in Duma investigating. People who work for the UN are now coming out and saying that the report was falsified and they want a new investigation to be launched to see what the truth is. And the UN is suppressing their testimonies and calling them agents of Russia. So, and people fell for it though. Right, and that was the justification for the 2018 U.S. missile strikes in Syria. And people on the left fell for it, right? They're like, Assad, the terrible dictator who uses chemical weapons on his own people. Meanwhile, Assad, for the last 9 years, has been fighting a proxy war with terrorists who the U.S. are funding because they want regime change. For the same reason they always want regime change. Let's look at Venezuela. Right, the UN just published a 500-page report on Venezuela, written by Francisco Cox, a lawyer for Augusto Pinochet, who I just mentioned. Right, and people are falling for it. Every time I do something about Venezuela, there's hordes of people, dictator defender, dictator defender, dictator defender. And they're trusting these reports from people who have collaborated with the U.S. and Augusto Pinochet. And, this is the same playbook. It's the exact same playbook that they always use, Evil dictator, worse than Hitler, needs to be taken out. We intervene, destabilizes the region. Look at Libya, Gaddafi, the worst leader ever. He's so terrible. What Gaddafi really wanted to do is make a Pan-African currency that could be used to trade oil. Or he wanted to trade oil in Libya's currency, maybe. Something like that. Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso, wanted to make a Pan-African currency. Both those people were murdered. And you could criticize Gaddafi, but now looking back at Sankara, the dude even lived his own personal life. He didn't have air conditioning in his house. This is the kind of people the U.S. are taking out overseas because they're supposed evil dictators. In the country where we have police actually murdering people and we have apparently forced hysterectomies at the border, and we're heavily funding Saudi Arabia, who's doing a genocide in Yemen, bombing their water sanitation facilities. And now like a 25th of the population in Yemen has cholera. Yeah, so I'm preparing to do a big long essay summing up what I think the U.S. Imperialism is, or who I think U.S. imperialism is most focused on, or Western imperialism, really just capitalistic imperialism, right? It's imperialism to expand the capital of multinational corporations, and I think right now the U.S. is focused on Venezuela, Syria, Iran, China, and I might be forgetting some, but and obviously Bolivia, they just got what they wanted. They got regime change. They got a coup. But so far, Venezuela, Iran, China, and who else? I say Syria have been resistant. You know, they've been fighting Assad for 9 years. He's been able to stay in power. They've done coups and attempted coups in Venezuela since 2002. You know, then they ousted Hugo Chavez, and then riots in the streets got the U.S. to actually bring Chavez back. Because they didn't want the people to tear the whole country down, I guess, or to, you know, who knows? The mass protests got them to bring Chavez back. So so far the people have been mostly loyal to Maduro, despite the fact that 75% of the media, I think, in Venezuela is privately owned, and then a good portion of that is opposition. But people recognize in Venezuela what the U.S. is trying to do. And they've been resistant to the point where I'm now worried about the U.S. actually launching a full military operation. And then Iran, obviously killing Soleimani and pulling out of the Iran deal was a huge escalation. Iran put a bounty on Trump's head. There's a lot of division between the political parties in Iran, you know, a lot of arguing about where the country should go next. And we honestly unified their country, you know, like similar to what happened after 9/11 when terrorists flew planes into the Twin Towers and all of America was unified, and the neocons used it to lie us into Iraq. In Iran, not the same thing exactly, but killing Soleimani was a similar event where it unified the country against the U.S., realizing, you know, the real enemy is foreign imperialism. And obviously we're putting crushing sanctions on them as they're trying to deal with COVID, making it hard for their hospitals to run. Same thing we're doing in Venezuela. And same thing we're trying to do in China, but it is not working, right? Which is, China is probably the most worrisome country that the U.S. is focused on right now, going into the year 2021, when we're going to have a new president here. China has nuclear weapons. China has become the second most powerful economy in the world. And China has recently started using their currency to buy some of their crude oil. The yuan, I can't remember the name of the currency, but either way, challenging the petrodollar, and that is really, really scary. And the amount of hostility, this is like, people are falling for the China thing so hard. People on the left, right? And even when you look at what's the main accusation against China, they have concentration camps with Uyghurs, and again, China, you know, and this is the main one. If you say that there's sketchy things going on, or that the sources about the Uyghurs are sketchy, people scream at you, dictator defender, you know, you hate Muslims, you know, and anyone who knows me, you know, I'm totally free Palestine, defender of Iran, you know, I hate the Iraq war, you know, these majority Muslim countries, you know, I want, you know, no hatred, obviously, you know, that's laughable, I think, that anyone would accuse me of that, but like, where was I going? Yeah, the Uyghurs, like the primary sources that everyone's using, John Oliver, New York Times, CNN, there's two sources. One of them is from Adrian Zenz, who is one of the authors of the Black Book of Communism, I'm pretty sure. But either way, he's on record of saying he's been given a mission by God to destroy China. Okay, and he's the one publishing a lot of this stuff about the Uyghurs, and he hasn't, like... He said he's on a mission by God to destroy China, and you think you could trust that guy? And then the second source, and you should check out Gray Zone's reporting on this. The second source about the Uyghurs is, I can't remember what it is, but it's this study they launched where they asked 8 defectors what's going on there, right? And you can look in depth at the study, and it's got these 8 people. These defectors from the country of 1.3 million, they could only find 8 people to interview about this. It's like, they ask them these questions like, how many people are there? And these 8 people give wildly different estimates. Some of them was like, you know, 2 million, and one of them was like 1,000. I don't remember what the exact numbers are. And they take the average, and that's what all the news sources have been running with, and being like, this is how many Uyghurs are in concentration camps, you know. And then the UN denies the request to go investigate. You know, China saying, come see what they are. But the Organization of Islamic Countries did take China up on their request, you know, and they went and checked it out. And they said every Islamic nation except Turkey has said what China's doing with the Uyghurs is ethical. They said they're vocational camps, which, you know, and of course, if there is a genocide, I'll be right there with you calling for an end to it. You know, if we find out more information and it's true, I'll be right there. But until then, you have to be skeptical of these things when your country is trying to lie you into another war. And when your country has a history of doing regime change in any country that challenges them economically, and China is the #1 country in the world that's doing that right now, right? We have to be skeptical of everything we read. We can't fall for these lies, people. Okay, that's just what I was thinking about today. Wanted to do a new YouTube video, just off the cuff, off the dome. All right, thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.